So definitely something Gameslayer wants to win.
Yep. He has requested very nicely that the other players let him win, so we'll see how accommodating everyone feels like being today.
Knowing Gameslayer, he's going to have to request the bank and their debt to be nice to him as well.
Yep. The other players can't do all that much about how much the colony wants to value his stock. And sometimes it just gets to a value that you can't turn down. Anyway, we are on Mars, we have a power colony and a double power price.
So yeah, I'm noticing that chems is high as well as the power things. That like scavenger being available, so I may want to jump on top of that. There's okay carbon in the north, but there's no nukes, so it's like kind of safe to go there.
Right, I'm not in love with any of the carbon spots just because they don't link up to wind locations all that easily. There is some on top of this cliff, but that's very weak carbon. I guess you could supplement that with more remote carbon later. So that's maybe an idea. Steel Faction's a bit less interesting with high power.
HQ has been founded.
Yeah, very true. I've seen people opting for nomads, although it's not ideal with like low glass and no glass colony. Nomads can obviously get into power very, very easily as well, using silicon.
Right. The nomads should still be fine between power and chems still being viable with the low fuel price and carbon price to start. But Expo's going for that expansive. Going tripled steel to start, he's going to be a bit more in trouble with that. There is only one geotherm, so that's not even going to be a great option for him.
Yep, unfortunately for him as well, Gameslayer has built on his nearby water, so he's gonna struggle to get that from somewhere.
That is something we haven't pointed out yet. Water is generally fairly weak on the map, only the one high tile that Time Racers has gone ahead and claimed. His setup is going to mean that he's a bit slower to HQ2, but claiming that water might be important enough that it's worthwhile.
Yeah, actually quite like Time Racer's position in the long term. He's the one with the adjacent geo as well, so like superconductor maybe something he wants to, well, not rush with his chem price, but get to. Obviously, he's got a nice water silicon aluminium spot at the top as well.
Yeah, definitely nice that his 1 HQ there covers most of the resources he needs, so he can get away with a slightly weaker second found that really just focuses on the one resource. I do wonder if he might have been better off just founding a little bit close to the silicon, have that adjacent to your base instead, but it's fine. Hexbus actually going into wind power. Going to be the first player into power, even.
I like that. Everyone else is in some amount of debt now. He's the only one with a AAA rating now, so he's poised to make good power money straight away at 150. Not sure if Sophie's been selling down carbon to help him a bit with that.
Yeah, I would imagine that has to be the case, but really do need to... Okay, Sophie also claiming a few tiles on this cliff, going to wind herself. Going to be a bit slower into that with carbon fairly high, but Gameslayer doing the right thing and dropping that Bloodhound Strike onto Hexbus.
Yeah. One thing I'm liking as well is Hexbus has spent that power money straight onto glass. Obviously,
works out especially well for him with this Marsquake coming.
Yeah. And the colony has actually first two modules in the glass as well, so a lot with the power colony started to make a nice little glass foundation for him.
A nomadic HQ has been upgraded.
Oh, we've lost Hexabus.
That is unfortunate. It is... By the official rules, we can't restart the game,
Yeah.
but he was definitely looking to be in a very strong position, and now...
Yeah, I mean, one criticism I did have is he doesn't actually have aluminium supply, so although he's got the glass, got the steel, got the power, he's got the power head, he's going to feed aluminium into somebody. Quite a lot with this price.
Right. Yeah, I guess the only person with a serious aluminum surplus is Time Racers, who Hasn't
A nomadic
developed
HQ
into
has been
much of a
upgraded.
threat yet, although he is in a solid position still, has the geotherm secured, has strong resources.
Yeah,
Game
I'm like this position.
Okay. Food is also a strong market for him to be moving into now. That should serve him quite well. Oh, and then there's Dust Storm just as everyone's going into food. I'm going to hurt Game Slayer a little more just because he has these solar panels he's going to be relying on as well.
So looking at the long term here, again, I talk about a bit, but I really like Time Racer's spot because he's got that long term like found, and all the markets being high, he can transition through everything very nicely and sort of basically kill a market to make all the money that's there if he rotates correctly.
One thing that is interesting going for this patent lab right now, gems are still pretty expensive. His main source of income is going to be drying up shortly with the dust storm. Curious to see what he thinks is quite important enough to be rushing this now, but he also does have the upgrade, so maybe he'll be fine anyway.
That patent lab placement, that kind of says he wants to go a geothermal borehole, which I feel is not a priority right now.
Right, long term that's definitely a nice play to make, but I don't think I would risk doing that right away.
Yeah, he's incredibly vulnerable to sort of power surges on that spot.
And even if someone's very risk averse about bouncing that, they can always drop a slowdown strike pretty easily and get a lot done.
HQ has been upgraded.
So he's going for plant dwelling. I both like and dislike this. Obviously, we talk about the water and the aluminium situation. He's got sort of the highs to himself there. It's going to hurt the silicon a bit as well. So I think it is good to have. I just don't know if he needs it this soon in the game.
Right, it is usable, but it doesn't feel like it's necessary for him. It's also interesting that he's moving into this third metal mine now. It does allow him to move into some wind there before too long, if that's necessary, but... And he is a nomad, he can return those claims, but it still feels questionable to devote so many claims away from his base.
Yeah, I would definitely like to have seen a third farm there instead. Obviously, food looks bad now because we're in a dust storm, but as soon as that dust storm ends, food is going to be absolutely great again.
And only Game Slayer is really in the full triangle of food.
Congratulations.
The Hexbus AI is going to the third food now as well.
And a single reactor, because why not? But yeah, another reason to kind of question the cliffside aluminum is just because, like we were talking about before, Time Racers does have that geothermal available. So superconductor, geothermal borehole should eliminate most of the need for supplemental power. Which...
Yep. I don't know if anyone's going to give him much of a challenge on superconductor either. Obviously, Hexbus being the AI in the cliffs isn't going to take it from him. No one else has an adjacent geo. So only person, or the person who would want superconductor is maybe Game Slayer for his solar panels. But I think there's higher priority patterns than that right now.
I'm not necessarily sure VR is one of them, which is what Sophie is going for. It should still be a pretty strong play, one expansive, scavenger, two nomads, but the Pleasure Dome market is also just going to be pretty heavily contested, 3 spots already claimed.
Yeah. Game Slayer's actually gone for carbon scrubbing, which I like a lot more. It's not a chem colony, but they're particularly high right now, and he is a long way from any carbon, so I think it sort of removes his need to actually ever try and long distance ship that.
Right, I think for Sophie I might be more interested in something like a teleportation or something, just to make this water a little bit easier to deal with. But it is just going to be an idle patent lab for the moment, having a bit of trouble scraping together cash to do anything while actually also getting Pleasure Dome down.
I wonder what
Yeah,
goes on
definitely.
there.
So we're starting to see a bit of the drawback of Time Racer's the way he's gone about things now. He's got 1200 silicon, 600 aluminium, and he just has no money to buy his electronics to upgrade. Otherwise, he could just fly through things completely right now.
Yeah, I'm honestly kind of surprised he only has 700 aluminum. Feels like he should have more at this point, but
He was selling it down at $1 per second, or 10 per second, $1 each for quite a while as well.
okay, I guess that would do it. Yeah, at this point, transitioning those into chems or glass seems like it'd make a lot of sense.
Begin.
But Gameslayer managing to build a pretty nice lead for himself. Mutinying away Time Racers' patent lab, and moving into a lot of nice markets, the chems and the glass in particular.
Yeah, the way this is going, it could, Gameslayer could get his wish. I am liking his long-term position here, especially with the adjacent water as well. I think he's gonna have no issues with that, like Sophia's.
Right.
Sold.
Going for that superconductor now, like you
A scavenger HQ
were
has been
predicting.
upgraded.
Sophie moving into more water, more chems, both very reasonable choices, and they get frozen immediately. Gameslayer definitely on top of things. Also moving into a hack array at the colony. Always a bit of a bold move when there are spies on the market.
Yeah, I don't really need it at this point. He's in sort of 4 good markets right now to himself. Chems, food, water, and glass. So he can't even get frozen out of things. He's just ready to soar away, even without the hacks, I think. I'd like to see him either start thinking about buying somebody, or like go for like a longer term plan, like get optimizations and things like that.
Yeah, something like a majority buy onto Sophie should be pretty viable and would serve him quite nicely. I don't think Time Racers is positioning himself to do all that much long term right now. Although he definitely has the potential with his territory.
Yeah. Again, he's suffering a lot from how he's built things. Without the extra markets, he has
The hacker arrays
become completely dependent on water, and that being frozen out, he's just stalled so hard.
Yeah, and right now he still has his farms and reactors off, which is just foregoing a lot of money. And also 2,000 silicon, 2,000 aluminum now.
Upgraded.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want with the aluminium at this point. I think even to get rid of the silicon as well. Like, you can rotate back into that in like 2 sols time or something, and you'll probably still have a surplus.
Right. I mean, right now he can upgrade, build 2 off-worlds and all of his buildings and still be fine. Okay, Gameslayer moving into an off-world market now.
Yeah, and he has the hologram, but if it does get spied, he also has thinking machines now as well. So he is just cementing his lead so hard right now.
Off-world's not all that strong, but they should give him a steady source of income going into the late game. Maybe want to see more optimizations instead with all the life support prices so high though.
Yep. One thing I'm not liking is Gameslayer's doing the Gameslayer thing and completely ignoring power right now, which is starting to creep up now, and so is his debt.
Right, he definitely has tools to deal with the power issue with his superconductor, but he hasn't been using that. And,
Congratulations.
well, superconductor solar panels would be really excellent over some of this glass per se.
I think I would like to see a bit more black market use from people right now. I think
Still a lot of cheap stuff available. The 14
everyone has cooldowns ready, and yeah, everything is just so cheap. Even network virus at this point. Why not?
Center is ready.
Never hurts to store up a defensive mutiny or just a free network virus at some point. Even just pick up a spy or a hologram if you can't think of anything.
So right now, that off-world is making about twice as much as the quarries, the farms, the reactors, to amount as a solar panel as well as superconductor. So not that strong, but if this game does go long, then it's gonna pay off, I think.
Right. One thing to watch out for, I guess, is that he's launching steel at the moment. I'm not sure that's going to be sustainable. Eventually, food might become more reasonable, especially with optimizations, but Gameslayer's optimization center is idle. And he's going to eat a sea dead tick.
Yeah, maybe we'll get that down to B right before the tick, if anything.
Right, both those things just seem very unnecessary when he has 130k on hand. But still in a commanding position.
Yeah, another life support shortage is basically gonna continue to make off-worlds not that good.
Also going to help Time Racers get back into things. He's been making a lot of money off of this water.
Yeah.
Slowly catching back up.
And he is going in, well, he was going into cold fusion, which I think was,
The engineers
given his
have
slant
advanced
drilling
our
on
production.
triple high water, I think that's fine, even though the water price is high now.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
He's now up to 3,000 aluminium.
The black market is open.
I like
Even
how-
on IO, I think that's excessive.
I like how Sophie as a spy there just maybe sort of, I can't possibly believe this is still triple aluminum. Maybe there's something there, although there's not really anything that could actually be hidden there.
New land
Like
is
triple
available
wind
for
turbine,
option.
maybe, I think, is like the best you can do. That's like a very DT move to do.
Is this an... this is GameSlayer hacking electronics. Going to make a lot of money off of that. No one else is contesting that market, which is true of most markets, but electronics always especially hard to get in the way of.
Sold.
So I guess now I'm looking at things and I'm asking myself, like, how does GameSlayer lose himself this game?
How
And
could one refuse such a
kind of
wonderful plot of land?
maybe doing one of them, which is, again, letting that deck out of control. His stock is just so cheap for everyone to buy into now.
Right. Sophie and Time Racers really should be buying in right now. That is their best chance, but GameSlayer is trying to do something to address this with this quadruple solar panel, which is just going to be great for him.
Our methods continue to improve. Market is online.
So I think that was, yeah, that must have been Time Racer's manual auction he did there to get himself a nice wind turbine spot. However, still the aluminium is right there on a cliff,
Affirmative.
and
What a payout.
Yeah, it's just all very unnecessary.
yeah,
Alright.
that and he is a
The
nomad as
stock
well.
is being sold.
With 4 return claims still.
Yeah, GameStar has, I don't know if he paid down debt or he did it with power there, but he's now down to B debt, so he's back in a nice spot. I really would like to see him buy his stock now as well. The other people buying in, it sort of triggers that internal incentive, like everyone has to buy their stock now.
Prepare for pending market adjustments.
Otherwise, people will start buying his for cheap.
Yeah, I don't see any other way GameSlayer loses besides getting piled on, so starting buy-in would effectively prevent that. Time Racer is moving into an off-world of his own at this point. Still probably too far behind to effectively catch up without a lot of help, but it is a move in the right direction. It also is feeding into this electronics hacking a bunch, though. And off-world's still not all that strong.
Yeah, I feel like this could have been anyone's game if they'd have sort of committed a lot harder to optimizations at this point.
Yeah.
If you'd still gone strong.
I am surprised about how people have distributed their optimizations. It's because, well, no one's really put much into food in particular. I mean, GameSlayer going into electronics makes a lot of sense. Water would make more sense if he stopped auto-selling it. Sophie has put a bunch into oxygen, which is a bit strange. That isn't the off-world launch. So it's not really something that is necessarily going to be a problem. Not more so than food, at least. Time Racer is going just all into power. Also, not something I understand all that well.
This water charge is working out very nicely in Time Racer's favour with his triple high. As
Yeah.
far as things are going to pan out, GameSlayer has almost got the buy in Time Racers. I wonder if he's going to sell out to give Sophie a chance to buy into GameSlayer. Now he's just going to let the stock go.
Yeah,
Black market
I would
is
assume he
online.
would just let the stock go, but I don't really have a great sense of of how he plays. He has returned one of his aluminum claims at this point, so that's nice. But he still has 2, which is 2 more than he should have, with almost 4,000 aluminum stockpiled now. And Sophie, I mean, still getting nice optimizations done, but it feels like it's not going to be enough. No off-worlds, which again isn't such a big problem with how weak they are right now, but it's not really having the claims to fight a Game Slayer with a sub.
Yeah, if these claims, if these stocks don't get sold, I think it's definitely Game Slayers. I think maybe if Time Racer sells that now, she has an outside chance if she sells one stock as well, just to quickly rush that buy down.
Optimization routine successful.
The D+3 debt on Game Slayer is going to help a little bit with that.
Right, one little detail that I did not like right now, I guess she doesn't necessarily know about the hologrammed off-worlds, but holding onto that mutiny, dropping it onto Time Racer's off-world right after the buyout would potentially be stronger. Sophie actually has a pretty decent shot at this. Game Slayer not making all that much money.
Yep.
The sellout, Sophie would be at 340-ish, I guess. So she needs another 150 or so. Although I guess Game Slayer's price will go up as he buys back in Sophie.
The engineers have advanced our production.
Yep, I'm definitely wanting to see the sellout here, just to, because you can't win this in the long run with the subs, so obviously selling out gets you the cash quicker to end the game quicker, basically.
Right, and I think it also forces Game Slayer to commit his cash to your stock sooner, which reduces his ability to pay off his own debt, makes him more likely to eat another huge interest tick, and that should maybe be enough to just carry you through the rest of the game. Carbon hack. Should work out pretty nicely. Game Slayer has no carbon, only Hexapus, as the AI has carbon. He already has a nice stockpile of 500, so there's not too much that can go wrong with this hack.
It's a steel shortage coming as well. I didn't see if that was a hack from somebody, or was that an actual steel shortage coming?
I think it's an actual steel shortage. At least Game Slayer's not buying into it, and I would assume if he were the one hacking it, okay, right, he just had a chem hack go through.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, I don't think this changes too much.
Price manipulations to begin shortly.
It's going to be close to call. Game Slayer's got his debt down yet again, so that stock price is going to skyrocket.
Right. He's spent like 200k, maybe 150, just to pay down all that debt. Set him back quite a bit, but yeah, his stock price is rising quite rapidly, and Time Racers is becoming a pretty good sub at this point.
With the sellout, Sophie would be at almost 400k, so she's sort of 200k off now. Well, 250 now with that buy.
Mm-hmm.
I think without the sellout, I think Game Slayer might just make this.
Right, Sophie is still holding on to a mutiny. Could Billy still just drop it on that subs off-world?
Yeah, with Off-Worlds now making 38k per launch on food, it's definitely looking good to do that.
Prepare for pending market adjustments.
Instead, she's continuing on that Pleasure Dome.
Pleasure Dome is a solid building, still not as good as the off-world. I think maybe there's an argument for the next mutiny cycle taking a Pleasure Dome instead, just because the timing might work out better, but definitely not for right now.
Yep.
Either way, carbon hacks continue. No real response from Game Slayer to them, which he doesn't really need to respond as long as he can hack his own things in peace. And he is getting very close. At this point, he is ahead of Sophie. There isn't much she can do about that. This game should be over shortly.
optimization
Guess
routine
another
successful.
silly little detail about this game, because Hexbus dropped and became an AI, the hacking plays, I think, actually play up a bit. Just because the AIs tend to buy into any shortages at the very beginning. It's giving you a little bit extra money there. Which shouldn't really happen, but it's been that way for a long time, so I guess that's how it's going to be.
Yeah, it's slightly ironic. Hexbus being the person to make the hacking plays a bit stronger.
Normally it is the other way around, yes.
And that is game against that. So he got his wish.
Well done by him, building up a very strong lead off of good moves into the right markets in the mid-game, and then just doing everything he needed to cement that, well, besides plunging into D+4 debt. But wasn't enough of a problem.
Yeah, he did what he needed to do. I think he there was no any maybe there's a small doubt with that debt. There's a little chance where Sophie had a chance, but I think generally he would crack that in the bag most of the time.
Yeah, Sophie did a good job attacking Game Slayer as well. 9 hits onto him. I'm curious about these 4 hits onto Xpus's AI.
I missed them.
I guess they were maybe targeting Time Racers and just Hexbus as collateral damage.
I see Sophie attacking Hexbus twice.
Right, early Soul 2, I'm not sure if Hexbus had dropped by that point.
We can tell by if you look at Game Slayer's first slowdown strike, that was Hexbus still in the game then.
Right.
So
So that's 5-10. Sophie's attacks were a bit later than that.
yeah, there was one on Soul 3 which he's definitely gone by then. And there's one on Soul 4 where he's definitely gone as well. Actually, the Soul 4 was the Time Race's collateral damage one.
Yeah, I
So I
think
think that's fine.
those are all attacks on water, probably. Which
Oh yeah.
might have been a bit strange since Sophie didn't have a great water of her own.